I can assure you that what you will observe is a vast wasteland.
Try and channel it.
And to let deny technical false, argue about technical false, you have to have free and uncorrupted communication.
Welcome to our program. I'm your host, Francisco Lomeli, here at the University of California, Santa Barbara. This is a program in which we invite leading Chicano and Latino artists, poets, novelists, and people of all kinds of artistic inclinations. We bring them to our campus and we try to have a discussion and a dialogue about their art, about where they come from, about where they are going, and also hopefully to give you some samples of the kinds of artistic renditions that they would like to personally present. Today we are extremely pleased to have the Taco Shop Poets from San Diego. It is a group that is quite unique in its composition, extremely unique in terms of how they came together, and also in terms of what they propose to do artistically. Of course, I will let them speak later on, but for now I just wanted to give you an idea. They'll tell us exactly when they originated, but just to give you some notion of what they are about. It's a type of a poet group. It's a combination of kind of a guerrilla poet group. At the same time, you're a group that's very public and that breaks down barriers and borders, and you like to blend, you like to bridge, you like to change, alter, transform. It's difficult to classify you, better yet. No? So again, welcome. We have to our left, just to introduce our guest, on our far left, we have Paul Timex. Help me again. Your last name?
It's Pruxakarn.
Pruxakarn, of course. And then we have Miguel Angel Soria, and then last but not least we have Adrian Arancibia. What is interesting to me initially is that you three are really quite different. You have different backgrounds, and it's quite amazing how you came together. Could you please, maybe any one of you, give us an idea how the Taco Shop Poets came about? Were you the originators?
He and I were members of the first group, and actually, we really would like to give thanks to the other kind of co-originator of the group and another poet who is not here, but he's been in the group for about 9 years as well. Well, first of all, Adolfo Guzman Lopez is the person who's kind of missing one of the original members, and he's in Los Angeles working for a radio station, so he wasn't able to get it off today.
Sure. Now, what year was that when you guys started?
1994, the summer of 1994. We did readings in July and August, and basically what we had realized at the time was that the poetic scene within San Diego at the time was not really necessarily understanding where our experiences had brought us to, and at the same time too, our expressions weren't necessarily something, like you say, not very definable, not very categorizable or categorical, classifiable. And so what would happen would be that we would be kind of not ostracized, but we didn't have a place that we could call our own, and so we decided to go ahead and basically try reading poetry at different taco shops in San Diego for a good period of about a month.
So obviously you chose the name Taco Shop for a reason, very deliberate reason. It was planned, right?
Definitely. It was about realizing that the traditional spaces where poetry was received just wasn't happening. And as he was saying, it was originally only slated to be a series. A series of 5 poetry readings, and we had a number of multidisciplinary artists, and after about a month, when we had the thing going, a couple of us said this can be something that we take on as a long-term project. But the taquerias became significant because, as we've said it's already a space in our cultura where culture is just teeming in there. You have it's a multilingual space. It's a cross class space. Cross-cultural space.
Cross-gender, cross-sexuality.
Yeah, everything happens at the taco shop, and we have there's the music playing, the banda, the jukeboxes. We have the weeklies that the community always puts out, and you have commerce and culture, and it's just a very interesting little laboratory. Yeah. And we wanted to just continue to partake in that space.
But did this occur spontaneously? consciously, or did you say, aha, taco shops, that's going to be the place where we could develop our style?
Well, no, what happened was, what we had realized was, like, we had shared the same interests. Adolfo, Miguel Angel, and myself had shared the same interests as far as poetry was concerned. And we had already been doing readings at different galleries and coffee shops.
Individually.
Individually.
Right.
And sometimes we would do them together, but more like one, the two of us, or Adolfo and myself, or Adolfo and Miguel Angel, we would do readings like that. And then what would end up happening invariably was we kind of left a little there was a vacuum left there. So since we shared that, kind of experience, we said, well, how can we translate this to art that is in the community, and at the same time allows us to participate with the community? And we thought, block parties might, art block parties might be a good idea. And then Adolfo himself, came by and said, no, I have the idea. It's taco shops. We're going to do it at taco shops. And I was like, first I'm looking for taco shops. Okay, we'll go ahead with it and we'll try it and everything. And turned out a lot better. The first one we did, there were 20 people that showed up. The next one, 40. By the next one, it was 80. And by the end of the month, we had 120, 150 people inside of a parking lot of a taco shop just hearing the poetry reading going to take place.
So it's really quite of a hit there. And you started in San Diego, right?
Started in San Diego, yeah.
In San Diego itself.
And Tijuana, because we did one reading in Tijuana. There were about 80 people that showed up. And the following one we did over in Sherman Heights, Golden Hill area of San Diego. And basically, the next one we had 120, 150 people out in the parking lot. It was amazing to us. We were like, whoa.
So you think the immediate attraction was the way you broke down barriers and spaces, and the way you kind of opened it up and made poetry really as consumable as tacos?
Yeah, antes el ojo del taquero, todos somos iguales. Like they say, before the eyes in front of the eyes of the taquero, we're all the same. Yeah, there's something to be said about that. I think the other thing is too. I think we're part of this, this next generation of Chicano artists that's coming along, and as well as doing work in cultural spaces, I think it's important for us to kind of challenge what those spaces are, and be able to find spaces where we can challenge the audience as well. I mean, that's what your work's all about. I mean, and we all know, we all of our work's basically about that.
Now, both of you have mentioned spaces. We'll get to you, Paul, eventually. Don't worry. We're saving you for a few things. You both have mentioned space. Does that mean that you're attempting to appropriate space, or you're trying to open up space, redefine it, or what?
Maybe redefine it. Appropriation to me is a very violent term.
Negative.
So when we're talking about having a performance at the taco shop, or having a performance in the border, or at a trolley stop, why not? And to redefine the traditional venues of where art needs to take place, and what are the decorum and the protocol when that happens. And so we're always trying to push that as much as possible. What is an audience, and what does the actor or the performer mean? And we're trying to change that role as much as possible.
So obviously you think that art is a public form.
Public and also very personal. At the same time too, I mean, we're constantly told by media that art has to be, there's a difference between high art and low art, and we tend to downplay low art. But I mean,
how do you handle that?
And that's the thing. I really challenge people's notions of what high art and low art are. I mean, what their notions are. And I think it's important. Like, there's something that's so beautiful as seeing an elderly man waiting at a bus stop and reading his paper every day. It's a poem in and of itself. Tying your shoes. We never think about tying our shoes in the morning, but that's a poem in and of itself. As everyday things that we don't really focus on the beauty of. That's poetry and art in and of itself.
Now let me just briefly examine for the audience a little bit about what you three are about, because each one of you is quite a different mix, and of course together you create a fantastic repertoire of a presentation. You're the origen Chile, no?
Yeah, I'm Chilean.
You're Mexicano, Chicano, born in Tijuana. And Paul, you're part Chinese and part Mexican, from San Diego also.
Right.
So it's really quite a different mix. I mean, do you think that the difference makes you even more unique? I mean, does it contribute to your artistic stimulus, to your impulse? How does that work? Maybe Paul, let's give Paul a chance here too.
I would say most definitely it does. Growing up in my household, being influenced by both Eastern and Mexicano culture, it was it's always left me something to talk about, particularly the neighborhood that I grew up in, Mid-City, San Diego. It's a, inner city, urban area, and it was a vast array of cultures that I could experience and come in contact with. And to be honest, that's one of the first things that attracted me as far as just being a fan of the Taco Shop Poets. I am one of the newer members. I've been here for about a year. But I actually met them at a reading at San Diego State, and one of the things that I thought was really positive and beautiful was the fact that, there was a Chicano, a Chileno, a Filipino, an African American, all in the same group, delivering a positive message, and that's definitely inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Any one of you?
Well, I think the other thing is, too, I think that we're seeking to, at least I'm seeking to redefine what Chicano is, because I am Chilean, but I've lived here in California and San Diego for now over 24 years. So it's interesting to see.
You become Mexicanizado, Chicanizado, whether you like it or not.
Exactly. The Mexicanization of my Chilean heritage is happening. But I try to maintain a Chilean heritage as well. But at the same time, too, I realize that that's something that's irreversible and within me. But it's important to realize that, like I'm Chilean, there are Guatemaltecos, there are Hondureños, there are Nicaraguenses, and Salvadoreños that at the same time are experiencing the same thing that we're experiencing. So I think that we have to kind of re-perceive the way that we view Chicano. Chicano can be a Latino or a Guatemalteco, or that's politicized and that's acting within the community to develop socially conscious artwork.
Now, each one of you, again, come from different types of even poetic backgrounds.
Exactly.
As we well know, Chile has an extremely rich background in poetry. Mexico does too. The whole border scene, it's always been a rich source of poetry. Mm-hmm. And I assume in your community also, Paul, or different kinds of communities. Now you've also picked up some of that. Maybe you could both, each one of you could describe a little bit the sources of some of your inspiration and maybe even some of your influences. Any one of you?
Start. My biggest influence would probably have to be punk music, and the whole spirit that it takes with it. I'm on both sides of the border. It was something that just was always present, and especially the do-it-yourself aesthetic. The fact that you can create an event that you don't need to have the formal settings for something magical to happen.
You can improvise even.
Exactly, and then after, just hearing Solución Mortal from Tijuana, hearing Mano Negra, a lot of bands that were there, also over here, Bad Brains in the United States, that just opened up a whole new world to me. And then, you have the traditional Latin American poetry and Mexico's poetry, and then Chicano poetry. One of our founding members was Alurista. And Alurista toured with us for a while, and
that I didn't know.
Yeah, and so it was incredible to have somebody that I first read at the Chula Vista Public Library, and then all of a sudden it's like, you fast forward to about 6-7 years, and then hey, he's performing with us.
Sure.
And to have that influence on us very early on was vital. I think it was, and then you get into the whole canon of Chicano literature.
Sure.
There's no way that we would be here without that.
What was there about the spirit of being punk, that would contribute to your art expression?
A lot of it had to do with the frankness of it. Not holding back.
The blunt, graphic.
Yes, exactly, and being able to.
In your face, even.
Oh, totally. And I think if some of the people that have seen me perform, sometimes I try to. I don't even try. It's just part of my aesthetic.
Sure.
And also coming from in Tijuana, my family was very involved in the avant-garde theater movement, and so I remember growing up with that all the time, seeing very, very strange plays. I think for a 5 or 6 year old to see that would question the relationship of against, I guess, space and everything else, but it was just always present. To be very theatrical. It's very natural.
You also have a very interesting background. You were saying that you went from being a punk to a kindergarten teacher,
yes,
to a librarian.
Yeah, I'm currently a librarian.
So,
So
I'm wondering how
I
that
was a
evolution
vocalist for a
happened.
punk band, and I'm told I'm the loud one in the group here, and but
Was that by
talk-
accident, that evolution of jobs?
I don't know. I think it's just I don't see them being mutually exclusive.
No.
You know, I think that to be I'm a straight edge punk, which means it's you try to live a life, a very healthy life of not doing drugs or alcohol, and you're very conscious of your community, and I think I love the energy that children used to, when I worked around them, it was just incredible. The younger children now work with, I'm a librarian at a junior high,
Sure.
and it's the same thing, it's, I get to do community work every single day, and I'm actually paid for it, and sometimes I feel, guilty taking the money because I love my job,
Now, Tijuana is just across your community practically. Does Tijuana still continue to be a source of inspiration? In one way or another?
Definitely.
The border, the whole scene?
There's no escaping it. There's no escaping it. I mean,
how do you think you've internalized it, and how does it come out in your own poetry?
Most of my family, not half. I mean, only my immediate family is here, but my extended family is all in Tijuana.
I see.
So we're crossing that border on a weekly basis, and it's just it's always there. And a lot of the themes. I grew up specifically in San Isidro, which is the first city you hit when you cross the border after Tijuana, and so it's like we are so interdependent, and we are symbiotic and synergistic that I had friends of mine that when I was younger that decided to walk the life of the drug cartels, and that's something that I try to break down in a lot of my work. How that influence and how that violence, where we have generations of children that are no longer around. They're in prison or they're dead because they decided to try to make a quick $5,000. And so we try to deal with that. And at the same time, there's very positive things that go on when you have this cross-pollination. And we try to embrace that with the code switching, with the affirmation of the reaffirmation of the culturas, always colliding and always bumping, playing bumper cars with each other. But
that's a good description.
It's a little game,
Let's get to Paul momentarily. Paul, you have a background that is not typical among some Chicanos. It's not that typical even in San Diego. I don't think it's quite that typical. Maybe in other parts like Los Angeles and San Francisco and others, no. But you've had to deal with your own borders. No?
Yeah.
What are kind of the influences? What are the kinds of things you've picked up to develop an aesthetic, to develop an artistic worldview, even a voice?
I would say just mainly being true to who I am at home. In my family, there's, within my own family, there's a great deal of prejudice. The Chinese side of my family does not accept me because I'm half Mexicano, and that's not good enough for them. And, the Latino side, Mexican side of my family doesn't accept me either because I'm one of those Chinos, So it's, I've kind of had to become an amalgamation of just me, Timex. That's who I am. They call me Timex because my dad was born in Thailand, my mom was born in Mexico.
Right.
And so I guess it's mostly like an individualistic type of thing, trying to survive and thrive within the influences that have been placed upon me.
You developed a lot in English departments, is that correct?
Yeah, San Diego State English Department.
How has your poetry come together, you think?
Actually, it's still coming together, to be totally honest with you. I was heavily influenced as a child and kid and teenager by soul music and primarily hip-hop. I'm a tremendous hip-hop fan. And pretty much for a lot of the same reasons Miguel Angel appreciates punk music. It's in your face, it's to the point, it gets the message across in a manner which anyone could deliver it. Going to San Diego State and reading just an array of writers, it's been really eye-opening, and I'm still a student.
Very good.
Still learning.
Very good. And Adrian, of course, you have, like we said, we have a quite different background because were you born in Chile or?
I was born in Chile.
You were born in Chile.
I came to the United States and landed in Missouri, of all places.
London, Missouri.
Yeah,
That's quite
the
a
family
jump.
that sponsored us lived in Missouri, so we stayed in Missouri for 3 years and then immediately moved over to Los Angeles by 1979, 1980, and moved to San Diego by 1981, if I'm not mistaken.
I see.
And yeah, I mean, the influences for me, we talked about this earlier, is my mother and father is incredibly important. My family is incredibly important. They would always talk about Neruda, obviously, and
that's like a centerpiece.
Yeah,
in Chile.
Exactly, and Gabriela Mistral too, who's the
Gabriela
second
Nobel Prize winner.
Nobel winner in literature, and so there was already a tradition there to be built upon, and I had already started to write a little bit. And then, fortunately for me, I had great mentors like Mr. Quincy Troop, and I used Barack as a mentor, as Jaime Concha as well, Rosada Sanchez, and by the time I was in college,
UC San Diego.
yeah, who really they taught me how to focus in my work. Carlos Blanco Aguinaga, the same thing. They would sit there and work with me and help me hone my craft as far as becoming a writer, and. My influence is obviously, I read a lot of literature, but same thing, I listen to alternative music, or I listen to hip-hop, or I listen to the songs my parents, and the funniest thing is, like, the older that you get, the more and more you end up realizing how beautiful the songs that you remember only fragments of you go back to, and you realize, oh, there was some kernel of truth in that, and just listening to the songs, the traditional songs from Chile. There's people that start street poets there that you never really gave credit to, or you understood they were important and they become part of your conscience.
Like Violeta Parra, maybe.
Violeta Parra would be one. What is it? Vitor Jara. Another guy though who's lesser known is Tito Fernandez as well. But you start realizing that they become part of your language and part of the storytelling process that you've accumulated in your own brain and your own consciousness, and it's really, really interesting to see that. And you start realizing the thing they taught me was just, it has to be immediate. It has to be something that's tangible. It can't be solely an abstraction. It has to be something that everyone can participate in.
Now, how did you filter all of that? Lo Latinoamericano, and filtering it through LA and Southern California. How's it worked out for you?
For me,
it's a different world.
I think the interesting thing is that that's the beautiful thing. That's once I just, I became conscious. I was always, my uncles in Chile were in prison and taken basically the camps for participating in the leftist struggles over there. So I had already had this image of being, kind of socially conscious in terms of
Pinochet.
Exactly. And by the time I came here, even though it was somewhat romanticized, because I saw them as fighting for something bigger than themselves, I'd already had that kind of consciousness, and seeing myself in going to school with kids that were Mexicano and being pulled over at the same streets the Mexicanos would be pulled over, having the cops harass you. I realized, wait a minute, there's no difference between what's going on with them than me. I don't think they're going to ask me, "Are you Chilean?" When they pull me over, what they do instead.
I recognize that accent. They would say
exactly. I think it's just, and that's how I started realizing, well, there's really no difference. And how do I take part in this active struggle? I take part by declaring myself Chicano, and at the same time too, I am Chilean, but I'm Chicano at the same time too, because in the eyes of dominant culture, there's no real difference between the two. And that's how I've kind of taken on, my identity here, and at the same time being able to produce work like that.
And I've insisted on looking at each one of you individually, because I think it's important to show the source of difference and richness from where you come. But then maybe each one of you could briefly mention how these differences have come together. I think because that's the taco shop poets. That's part of the fascination and attraction of the taco shop poets.
The difference is
it's not because you do it individually, but because you do it together, and it comes to so well.
Yeah, I think it's
in the stage.
The neat thing is that we really respect each other. In the end, we really, really respect each other, and we have a genuine. The guy was participating in my wedding. Adolfo participates in my wedding. Tomas participated, and I think all of us have participated in each other when we were married. And I think it's interesting. I think there's a mutual respect, but at the same time too, we've been doing it for so long that it's almost become second nature. It really has.
You're all guys. I'm just curious, because I'm sure some of the viewers might wonder, well, are there any women that would be taco shop poets?
Actually,
would that be a dangerous thing to do? I don't know.
We had a lot of women poets.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. The history of the taco shop poets is filled with a lot of poets that participated and were an integral part of the group in the beginning and in probably its middle years. They've just moved on to bigger and better things. You know, we had Pat Payne, who
the world heavyweight champion of poetry.
Exactly.
Taos.
The Taos world heavyweight champion. We had Esmeralda Jimenez, who is a San Diego poet, who's still very active.
Well, that's fascinating because I hadn't heard of those women as part of the Taco Shop Poets.
And actually, they're in the anthology too, as collaborators, and because they were.
Allow me to show this briefly. No?
Yeah.
This is your most recent edition of the same book,
most
right?
recent edition.
Because if I remember correctly, it was the same title.
Yeah,
Right, exact same title.
basically,
It's just a new edition. Yeah.
And I think to keep in mind, we've had women in the group, and at the same time too, I think it's positive that we have, like you say, three very different types of personalities.
Of course, you have other persons also.
Yeah,
just three of you came to Santa Barbara today, but you have
We have
others.
6 standing members right
standing
now.
members?
So this is only half of Taco Shop Poets.
And you mentioned you have some in other places, San Francisco and so
Yeah,
forth. No?
yeah.
Right.
So it's like a roaming type of Taco Shop poet.
Exactly. And then the other part that's very important is the musicians.
Exactly.
But
that's fairly new, is it not?
No, we've had it since the beginning.
You had it from the beginning. Oh, I didn't realize
and
that. Okay.
so the musicians have always been the pillar in us. We've had different groups
I see.
of musicians, but we've always had we've always had that relationship that our poetry needs to be tied, with the floricanto, and so. It's very important to do that.
I'd like to be able to give each one of you the opportunity to read or to recite something, because I think it's important for the audience to be able to experience you individually or even as a group, como quieran ustedes. I don't know if you want to read something from the book, and then we can go on and discuss some other things, but because for the sake of time, I'd like to be able to do that. So if you want, I'll just pass this on to you, and you can decide to either read a piece, recite a piece, because I know some of you recite your poetry out of memory, which is quite admirable.
I'm not that good.
Most of us can't do that, but
No,
you can.
I'm not that good either. You want to go first, Paul, or do you want to?
He's a memory man.
Okay.
Do you want me to just do it from here? Or?
However you like.
Okay. What's your name? What's my name? A rose by any other name is still the same, so I sit and I wonder upon the reasons why you live your life in slumber with no vision and no ambition, and there's a lack of common sense and intuition, and it seems you lack in the power to clearly think. But what did you expect when all you do was smoke and drink? You don't see this, and you don't hear this, and you don't feel the type of things that I be dropping when I'm concocting and interlocking these words and phrases. It still amazes me that you tell me keep it real and be original. But when original, you say my style is trivial, when all I'm trying to do is come from the heart. But when I turn my back, I know you tear it apart. I sit and contemplate and ponder on the reasons why you're buying into this society. It makes me sigh. Your whole existence seems to have become commercialized, so being a humble man, I guess I will apologize. Look, I'm sorry for not being jiggy, and I'm sorry for not drinking bottles of Cristal. I'm sorry for not having fat wads of cash and a million miscellaneous women to shake their ass. I'm sorry that you had to hear a poem like this. I'm sorry, don't take it personal, it's not a diss. Look, I'm sorry, but I guess you'll never understand. These are just honest thoughts coming from an honest man, but you don't feel me.
Very good, very good. Anybody else?
Go. Take in front of you.
This is for my brother Diego Suleiman Arancibia. Forgive me. Over halal chicken, my brother prepares for his next to last prayer, kneeling to the east, and I lay my soul down on tables while forgetting to pray sometimes. When the wind blows from the west, Tommy says, there's a silence, a pause, when I can capture the sounds of children's souls fluttering in the wind, wide chants of voices like beads bouncing off the ground. I don't forget that prayer has not freed the scores of children my mother tends to, like Clara Barton of old, mending wounds of families lacerated by hard time, separation, sutured bars. Each child leaves a wrinkle in time. The halal smells, mint leaves and yogurt, leaving my brother prostrate, bleeding a chant up into the Orion constellation just rising. I forget to pray because one nation under God means at all cost. Keep the right people within, margins emasculating masses, and I forget when my fans can no longer write, feel, and hear. Children telling me they're afraid to speak English, always English. Y tengo miedo que se van a reír cuando hablo. And then a silence, a pause. I keep telling them about a freedom I ain't tasted yet. My brother evokes a hamdulillah stirring faith, a hamdulillah stirring faith, pushing me to tears. Sometimes I forget to pray, and no caress and no touch ever means as much as a voice beating against the wind. Ever means as much as a voice beating against the wind. Past the Lazarus and all of us, no freedom, only suffering. No God but the dollar, no time to enjoy. Don't you know? Enjoying's for the dead. Lord, forgive me if at times I forget to kneel and pray. Lord, forgive me if at times I forget to kneel and pray.
Okay.
You're supposed to do the hand.
Okay.
We live in a world of rock en español and los bookies, both making people twirl, like the twilight staccato hunger that makes us want to prove we are alive. We drive through dark chapeled masses, our quick pit stops, after the stains of chips con guacamole blend with the flakes of 4-month-old pan dulce. We live in a world with Julio Iglesias and Santana playing the same damn fucking song on different times. We hear the echoes of El Comandante Marcos fainting down, and Gloria Estefan keeps whining on Top 40 about some tierra libre. We live in a world where the topless sex bar and Taco Bell make people feel they have a shell from hell. We live in a world where dulcerias die while in their alleys some damn fool fries. We live in a world where the closing of your eyes means everybody dies.
Maybe each one of you could just briefly explain how that poem emerged, and address also how that's created almost a certain character for taco shop poets, because obviously it's a type of poetry that is meant to be oral. First of all, it's meant to be direct. It's communicative in a very special sense, where you're trying to bring out the best in people, at the same time even provoke them to thinking about other possible realms of justice, fairness, maybe even equality, and so forth. Why don't you just briefly talk about it, Paul, beginning with you?
Well,
how did that poem emerge?
It actually emerged from, before I came to Taco Shop Poets, I was an MC in a hip-hop group, and they liked my writing on that strength and invited me into the group. Part of that poem, it comes from the frustration of not just hip-hop, but in general, the over-commercialization of, it's just, making a commodity out of something, rather than coming from your heart. You ask from the pocket rather than from the heart. And it was just a frustrating situation where when you have artists who really have something to say that's significant, they get overlooked all the time by the artists who, they're just cookie cutters. They just come out of a mold and they create strictly for the purpose of marketing rather than putting a message out there.
So you find people reacting very positively to that kind of message, right? I assume.
I mean, it's
we all get bombarded by commercial poetry and other things.
Yeah.
But I think once they hear something that is so directly from the heart, I mean, it's almost a little shocking, I would think, to a common audience.
It could be both ways. I mean, it could be refreshing, and it could also be like, who do you think you are?
Well, really, you find the reaction too, huh?
Yeah.
Adrian?
Oh, no, that piece that I read was inspired by my brother. My brother converted to Islam maybe 5 years ago. And we were just talking about this earlier today too. Sure. And for him, it was a step that he wanted to take because he found his life was very, very disorganized and very going in different directions. And it gave him a structure for his life. And the funniest thing is that he's a politicized person as well, who considers himself Chicano as well. And it's interesting to see how we would talk and be able to discuss the issues of our day. There's no money but the God, and there's no God but the dollar in today's society. We both work with children at the time, so we see the the problems that we face as educators. I mean, seeing kids, like he says, either they're in jail or their parents are in jail. You have that type of situation, and my mother's a teacher as well, so we're all dealing with this kind of.
You're a graduate student now.
Yeah, I'm a graduate student now, but I was an elementary school teacher for like 6 years as well. And so we would see these kind of issues that are going on in our communities, and that became kind of like I went through a period where I really didn't believe, how could there be a God if there's so much suffering? And and the thing is, he keeps on telling me, keep faith in what you're doing, keep faith in what you're doing, and in the end that'll show through. Because if you lose faith, you're not going to be really able to enact any change in the community. So I think that it's funny because it becomes a kind of a turnaround. So
Sure.
as while I'm critiquing, at the same time I'm learning.
Right. Miguel Ángel?
I remember the origin of this poem was we were sitting around at Adolfo's house, and he had an old Italian typewriter. What's the name of those? Olivetti? An old Olivetti typewriter. Yeah, and so I put in the paper and I rolled it up, and we were talking about rock en español that day, and it just I just typed it out, and we used to have these dinner parties where we would just I guess we were processing a lot of the community work that we would do during the day, and then we'd come to somebody's house, and we'd just, okay, this is where we're at right now, and what do we really want to get across with this work. And the phrase that I ended with, we live in a world where the closing of your eyes means everybody dies. I think it's the center for a lot of my work. It's that the brutality of apathy, and it's so pervasive. I don't know how many people I've talked to, and I can tell them about, hey, this is the way. They're all, well, what can I do? And then I'm all, you could do a billion things. It has to be whatever comes to your corazón, and then they'll back out. As soon as they hear like what they really need to be doing. But it's a lot of times that fear, it's part of the process before you get to empowerment, and we sometimes have to just put it in very, very urgent terms. And so I have this, the saying.
Sure. But what I'm realizing with you three and Taco Shop Poets is that, you're not militants in the old sense of the word. But it's like you're like a new kind of militant, a postmodern militant, if you will.
That's a heavy term.
No?
I think
No?
I think what we're doing is.
Into literature,
No, postmodernity it's a polemic word. I don't like. I think what it is definitely. I think it's an interesting, a very interesting collection. Because we're taking. Like I say, we used to think of Chicano identity as one way, and when we have a Muslim that's Chicano, we have a Chihuahuense that's we have a Chinese Mexican American here, a Chilean. Taking it, redefining it, and at the same time too, being able to push it over so it allows everyone to participate, and at the same time too, forces them to look at the issues. Apathy is an issue. Commercialization is an issue. The way that our schools are is an issue. These are things that come together, and it's we call it Somebody would use this word polyvocal. It's a polyvocal expression. Yeah. Because out of all this nonsense we can all chatter at the same time, but if we put it together, beautiful things can happen. I think that's one of the things I've realized from the group, that if we put it together just in the right ways, it's not only is it profound, but it's also beautiful to see at the same time too.
And despite the more recent criticism and perhaps less acceptance of the term Chicano, you three and your group in general is proving that the term Chicano is almost like a synthesizer, not different than in music. Synthesizer that brings you three together. That almost becomes the bridge or the point of convergence, where you three come together and
while saying
built out.
While saying we're all capable of being Chicano and becoming politicized, not putting qualifiers. At least for me, I'm going to speak for me, and it's in the sense that I think it's really interesting that we can put, kind of put our voices together, because in the end, our community is the most important, and our community does have Tijuanenses, it does have Chileans, it does have Chinese Americans, so we have to be able to include that in the common vision, the common goals.
But you're also political, almost in an existential sense.
I would agree with that.
Because you're not political in the sense that you're promoting a certain ideology. It's not like the Chicano movement in the 60s and 70s, where we pushed a certain ideology. Nobody knew exactly what that ideology is. I mean, you're in a sense trying to redefine community. You're trying to push the envelope so that people can see themselves through difference being a common thing.
Yeah, similar.
And one of the things that we do is through our performances, I use a lot of Augusto Boal's techniques, which he was the leader of the Theater of the Oppressed movement.
Right.
And I was lucky to be trained in that at an early age, and I've always brought it into the group, where we break down that wall between audience and performer, and when we use the spectator, as he says, he calls it the spect actor. And if you go to a taco shop poetry reading, you're going to you're going to participate in which, exactly, and that forces that rehearsal of social change to always take place, and sometimes the audience isn't even realizing it, but we've done it around a number of topics, whether it was 187 or 227, the propositions that really devastated this state for a while, or just very simple acts of expression, getting the audience to take the stage, as we say a lot, and
it's a form of empowerment also.
Exactly.
Fully,
on the part of the audience.
Exactly, and
That's political.
Yeah, that's
what I mean. It's not the old sense of being a militant.
Well, and then the other thing too is that within our own city of San Diego, we put a lot of effort and a lot of money into it, because we went into a space that we developed called Voz Alta, and that's, for us, it's.
Talk to us a little more about that.
Yeah, we when we first came out, the most funding we received in our early days was $60 and a pat on the back from the Centro Cultural de Raza. Go ahead, mijo. And we were like, okay, and we didn't know what to do. But
we had $60.
That covers gas to Tijuana,
And a few tacos.
And we used to be a group of 14, and so we're like,
so we really didn't have funding per se, or we didn't have a space like we were talking about. That's why we decided to go to the taco shops. We didn't have people that would sit there and literally show us this is how you workshop a performance piece, this is how you workshop a poetry piece. And with Voz Alta, we decided that we want to be able to have a space for all these communities within the word community to be able to produce art that is socially conscious, and at the same time too speaking about the realities that occur in lives of Mexicanos, Latinos, and Chicanos here and there in San Diego. And I think that's really important.
I would think also that kind of audience would be a kind of a challenging audience, because they go there to buy tacos, not to listen to poetry. So how is it that you're able to, instead of putting salsa in their tacos, they're putting poetry in their salsas? How do you manage that?
What's the mantra? The mantra is read tacos, eat poetry.
Muy bien. Sí.
And we've had all sorts of different responses when we've done the
maybe
taco
talk a little bit about the
rings.
different responses. That must be
wild.
Quite fascinating. Extremes, me imagino, ¿no?
Oh my God! It's over the years we've had because we perform everywhere in town. So we've had the positives where people are giving us tears of joy, and then we've had people covering their ears and we've had.
Are the audiences predictable now for you?
No.
Have they what?
Predictable.
No, because they never know. We give out let's say a general flyer or something, and it's or posted in the local weekly.
Yeah.
But most of the time, half of the people there
are for you.
Yeah.
The other half, they don't know if you're supposed to be there or not, so they may take it whatever they want, the way they want to.
Exactly.
And then you may have when we do readings in some parts of the city, you may have a homeless person just take the mic.
And it's happened several times.
And you kind of have to roll with it, and he gets off of his chest what's been frustrating him, and you're kind of like, what should I do? And then finally we realize, just let it go.
Sure.
Because the thing is, that's part of the community as well, correct?
Well, I think what it is that I think you three and Taco Shop in general, you guys are almost like a big court where you plug people into poetry.
Yeah.
See? And once you do, I think people realize that, like, oh gosh, life is poetry.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, Pablo Neruda talked about this. Odas a cebollas y alcachofas, you name it, ¿no? Básico, ¿no?
Yeah.
Exactamente. So I think it's a way of going back to some basics, to some very basics, human things that we all like, the orality of life. No, there's something for sounds and tradition sort of dictates that.
Yeah. And I think for us, it's been relatively interesting to see those reactions at different points. I mean, for us, to be real honest with you, even today when we go and perform in a theater like we did today, sometimes it kind of you look at it and you're like, why don't we just do the taco shop? The taco shops are fun, because you feel at home. There's no pressure on you. There's nothing going on. And something spontaneous is going to happen before the end of the night that's going to make you say, that's why I come down here and read at the taco shop.
Universities are probably a little more sanitized in that regard, no? So it probably requires a little more performance on your part, no?
We've had the real taco shop poets, the taqueros, participate in readings.
Yeah.
Oh, they do.
And then we've had them, I remember one in particular where he said, well, I was yo fui el campeón de declamación en mi pueblo, and, the poetry aloud champion in my small town, and it was just like, well, okay, and he just wanted to say his poems, and he went with it, and it was his taco shop. So what were we going to say?
Or like the other extreme is like we're gonna get a press photo, and we go behind the table, and to take a press photo, I and Adolfo and Tomas, and we sit there getting our picture taken, and then this guy who doesn't have anything to do with the poetry, and he rolls up and says, okay, I want an order of this and this, and we're sitting there going like, wait a minute, this is like really, really strange. All the roles have completely reversed. Yeah. Not only do we have people reading poetry that cook, but we're reading poetry, and now all of a sudden we're part of the establishment ourselves,
Yeah, and we'll deliver food to the tables, the performances and the whole deal.
But again, I guess that's the nature of performative art, performative poetry, because it's you never know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't.
Would each one of you like to maybe read another short piece or recite another short piece? I think it'd be great to have a little different piece from each one of you.
Let's see.
And then we'll continue talking with the time left that we have.
Can I slip an S? Can I slip an S closer to your breast? Perhaps take an L, use its elbow to rub the softness of your hair there. We have the darkness of these empty sheets to stretch out and hide in, to use as our blanket. Maybe I might drop M somewhere around your ear and let their legs reach and hook themselves, dangle off your earlobes. These could roll down your back like beads of velvet, and we could end the night, hair falling onto my face like tease, as you and I laugh together, clutching hands in a night spent under paper white sheets, sweating letters and sex.
Salsa. No el vestido con todo y tacón, o el baile donde se encuentra el presidente o el ladrón, pero hay salsa, salsa de tu sabor. Salsa no el baile, pero el velo del muslo de lengua, de una raíz molida con el empujo de tus dedos, de veranos blancos en el reflejo de un sol perdido. Salsa, no el ritmo, pero lo verde, manos tercamente pegadas. Salsa, el choque, chipotle, la chispa, ese tu chile, tu fruta, tu amor.
She's always there for me. She puts my mind at ease. She's ready to lift me up when my soul feels down. Since birth, we started out as childhood friends, and I know she will remain until death do us part. From the heart, I'm putting this on everything that I love. She exists in every aspect of my life, from the beating of my heart to each step that I take. From the rustling of the trees that the wind creates, there is a rhythm steadily sounding in my ear. If you take the time and listen, I'm sure that you too will hear and understand the reasons why I love her so much. Although I feel her every day, I have yet to touch and understand everything she's all about. Sometimes I like to fool myself, but I can't do without her many styles, finesse, and the way she entertains my brain, which causes my body to react. And in fact, through her, I've fathered quite a few of my own. With another silent remedy, my love is shown. Until the end of all time, I will continue to pursue it. My name is Time X, expressing my love for music.
Okay, very different. Each one of those were quite different from the first ones. No, quite different. No, you
They were
guys
metaphysical. They tried to get all metaphysical.
are different kinds, no, different besides different
Channel
moods.
now.
Different moods, and it's quite clear on how each one of you have different kinds of strengths, and of course you blend them in as a group. Of course, you poets are fairly young men. I'm wondering what you would be doing in about 20 years, maybe 30.
20 years from now, I don't know.
Are you going to be a punk still, for example?
Are we going to what?
Is he going to be is Miguel Ángel going to be a punk
For
still?
life. I worry more about what's going to go on tomorrow. I think 20 years from now, I want people to say the same thing I want them to say tomorrow. That I was doing a good job and I was a good guy. That's the only thing that really matters. You know. I don't know. How do you feel about 20 years from now?
I don't know. I've never looked at before. I'm always
Because it seems to be very young type of poetry in the sense of the style and the presentation. It's very vigorous, a great deal of vitality. The style, the hip hop, the rap, the punk. I don't know if you can be a punk once you're 55 or something. No say.
And you know what? It's interesting because my sister, one of my sisters, is a Tijuana skinhead, which is a whole different thing. They
and your sister's a skinhead, huh?
Yes, they redefine what it is to be a skinhead, and actually they take it back to its roots, which was a very non-racist working class movement.
Sure.
And I look at her and I look at her husband and my little niece. And I'm saying, okay, how long are they going to, be doing this for? And then you're asking me that question, and I think I've integrated the punk into all of the aspects of my life, and so it's just. When I say punk, it's the punk aesthetic to me is to continue to do community work. It goes along with being a Chicano. It's to be grassroots, which is also being a Chicano, and that it's delivered. Maybe I've mellowed probably a little bit, from when I first started with the group. I know I broke a microphone on stage today, but it was an accident. It was an accident. I think it's just we continue. The only thing I want to do is, if I get the chance to be there, that long from now, is to continue to give something back to my community.
Continue to grow, and for me, it's to continue to grow as an artist, because I think that the vitality. I don't want to be 20 years from now a writer that lacks vitality, a writer that does not address the issues that are important. If I do, please slap me. Make sure. So we get to that point. I want to make sure that I don't see it. I just want to continue growing day by day, and I think that's the way to look at it. Really, really the way to look at it.
Well, I don't know. It's fascinating to think and to even dream of how different you might be. But obviously, you've come a long way. You've created a style that's really all your own.
Yeah.
You've been able to blend, very performative type of poetry, and blend in with music. You become musicians also. You weren't musicians originally, were you?
No, but we dabbled a little bit, and he dabbled as frontman for a band. I sung for a while. Paul was an MC, and so we have experience with music.
Right.
And I think that the important thing of our work is we can perform it extremely well. Yes.
Right.
But I don't think it's necessarily performative work in the sense that you can take each one of our texts from our work, and it will stand on its own.
That's true.
And
Right.
that's a difference. I think that's a really, very big difference from. When we call it performative, it's kind of worrisome to me, because what we always tend to get, hey, you're a performer.
Does it have life on the page?
Yeah, you're a performance poet, and it doesn't have life on the page. And I think in that sense, I always want to continue both my performance, and at the same time, my literature, the things that I write, my body.
But I think you're also public personas. The way you present publicly, it's an integral part of your poetry.
Oh, exactly.
That's what I mean by performative. The other thing is that's I think also very distinctive, is that your sense of community, of giving back to community. When you talk to poets, typically, they may dabble in mentioning those kinds of things, but you three, in one way or another, have mentioned it as almost a form of like community construction, community creation, community, contributing back to the community, developing it so they appreciate the art, but that the art also becomes part of the community again. Kind of recycling poetry, for the good of the message.
Yeah, and it's always a practice, like he says, in the sense of you challenge the community, and the community in turn will challenge you. You have to kind of keep it in that kind of mindset where both sides are always challenging each other.
Now you're also professionals. No,
Yeah.
Paul is studying at San Diego State. You're studying UC San Diego. You're a librarian. You know, I would assume that also influences the kind of art that you're producing.
Definitely. And you know, we were asked this question in Chicago about half a year ago.
Hey.
If this guy came out from the audience and goes, "Hey, you guys are all graduates. Isn't that elitist?"
I'm like, oh no.
we're looking at him and
You get worried, right?
yeah, and it turned out he was playing a very sophisticated prank on us. You know,
I see.
in terms of, I guess he had issues with the type of work that we were doing.
Yeah.
But he was trying to play the
Devil's advocate.
the devil's advocate and do
I mean,
his
because
own.
it's obvious you're not taco workers becoming
Exactly,
poets.
exactly.
No, but at the same time, you're blending all these activities into one. No?
Yeah.
I think that's valuable.
And I think that's what's wrong with that. I mean, my whole thing is like
Nothing wrong with it.
nothing wrong with it, and at the same time too, it's like you know, I think we constantly have to be thinking as a community to. Where I haven't been there, and I have to check out this, and I haven't seen this kind of artwork. And why is Guac good? I mean, why was Osco important? Why were the muralists important here in the Chicano movement at first? Because you know they took over space. They challenged us to look at things in a different way, and at the same time, you know, Osco redefined that and forced us to look forward.
That's a great point because I meant to mention ASCO, but then I got distracted by some of the points that you made. In fact, originally I thought you were almost like a kind of a poetic ASCO.
Yeah.
Well, that's an. I mean, for me, that's
poetry.
I mean,
Okay.
Because ASCO was more into art, no?
Yeah. I think that-
Performative art and then visual art, etc.
Yeah.
But it seemed like there's an element of that, no? It's kind of a street type of poetry.
Yeah.
There are definitely influences, and I don't see as. I mean, I see as. It's funny because Gamboa performed at our space just about a month ago, was it?
There you
Yeah, a
go.
month ago.
And so.
So you have points of contact,
And
no?
Maricela as well, who worked,
Maricela,
Maricela Norte, who
absolutely,
worked with them as well.
absolutely, yeah.
So, and we see that, and it's
Points of
like,
contact.
push the
Yeah.
envelope, you know, see
Yeah.
what you can do, you know, force everyone to really look at himself. What does the Chicano community have? It has jetters, and it has, you know, punks, and it has Chileans, and it has hip-hop heads, and it has everything.
But I want to get back to one point though,
Yeah.
which is the point of whether this art, you know, the fact that we're poets, the fact that we have graduate degrees, is elitist. This whole act of writing poetry is a very ancient thing in our culture.
Yeah.
You know, whether
Absolutely.
it's Netzalhuacoyotl or the corridos,
Right.
it's always existed.
Right.
And I once told a friend of mine who's a very straightforward Marxist, you know, he said, "Hey, you're a great community organizer before you became a poet," you know, with quotation marks, he said. And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm still doing community work."
Right.
And if we stop fighting for the beauty of poetry, then the fight's over, basically. You know, the beauty of any art, the fight has already been over, and ya perdimos, you know? And so that to me is so important. You know, music, poetry, art, dance, it all needs to be expressed.
Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful opportunity to be able to have some dialogue and exchanges with you. I sincerely appreciate your candor and your frank comments, and I think we have a much better idea, at least through this medium, what the taco shop poets are all about. And I wish you the very best of success.
Thank you.
And I very much look forward to more books by you, CDs, and anything else, and also your performances. So,
Thank you.
muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
So this is the end of our program. And I want to thank UCSB for this opportunity. This is your host, Francisco Lomeli, at the University of California in Santa Barbara. Thank you so much.